So I've been using Linux. So I can't tell you the exact year or date, but I
Uh-huh.
know it's over 22 years. It was. I remember when Ubuntu came out.
Yeah, so yeah, you would have been before Ubuntu and Fedora.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way it happened for me was I was using Windows 95 or 98. Can't remember which one. And
Mm-hmm.
I BSOD'd. I BSOD'd for like the 100th time. I was running a business
Uh-huh.
and I got so pissed off. I grabbed the box and I was taking it to the computer shop, and I literally had just gotten it out like a week ago. Right. And I'm taking it to the computer shop and I walk in, and I was at that computer shop so frequently
Mm-hmm.
with my business computers that they knew me by first name. Like, hey, Alex, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? That's how frequent I was there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk in, and the actual owner's son was there,
Uh-huh.
and he was sitting on a corner of like a counter or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and he had Linux open, and I'm like, what the hell's that? And he says, oh, this is Linux. I'm like, wow. He says, yeah, you guys are fighting that whole Windows thing, and I'm over here just cruising around surfing the net and this, that, and other. I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, all right, well, let me try that. And so he put it on my box, and it was beyond. I mean, at that time, I was not super. I'm self-taught and everything. I've not had one class of anything. You know what I'm saying? So at that time, it was super techy, and it was a frustration, like none other.
Do you remember
But
what the distro was at that point?
The distro was.
There's not that many options at that point, so
It was RHEL. It was
Okay.
Red Hat Enterprise. It was
Oh,
Red Hat.
okay. Right, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Red Hat Enterprise, but I can't remember the actual version, whether it was like 1, 2, 12 or whatever. But at any instance,
Mhm.
it was Red Hat, and it was very, very, very techy, because at that time everything. I mean, there was literally. I think there was only like 3 or 4 different, applications on there or programs on there that actually had a GUI. Everything was all TUI. And command line, you know what I mean? So you had to learn how to kind of do that in command line, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and at best, I think you couldn't even get sound cards to really work with it. You know what I mean? It was really trippy. So that was my introduction to Linux. I got thrown into the deep end right from like the high dive platform, not the regular diving board. I'm talking like the high dive platform, and so that's the way it worked, and I just watched it evolve. I remember the biggest thing when Fedora came out. The biggest thing was there were GUIs. And some sound cards would actually work. And graphics card. There was a time, there used to be a time, pretty much so now you can go out and buy almost any type of piece of hardware,
Pretty much,
throw it in a box, and it'll work with Linux, right? There
There's
was
some weird
literally a
esoteric
time where
stuff that doesn't work exactly like, Stream Deck and things like that, but like, yeah, general hardware stuff, absolutely.
Yeah, general hardware, yeah. There was a time where even general hardware, you literally had to create a shopping list based on what was known to have worked with Linux. That's how long I've been using Linux. From the old days.
So looking at Red Hat at the time, it could have either been Enterprise Linux or Red Hat Linux, because Red Hat Linux still existed at the time.
No, it was Red Hat Linux. I remember that.
Oh, it was Red Hat Linux, not Enterprise. Okay.
Yeah, but I just don't know what distro, what version they were, iteration they were on.
Yeah, it was definitely near the end of the life of Red Hat Linux, so it would have been Red Hat Linux. Looks, if you were given a recent version, it would have been 7.
Okay, I think that might have been. It was. I think that's about right. I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, 7.0.9 or something around that was new at the time.
Yeah, somewhere in that. Yeah, it was 7. I think that's right.
Like that,
7 is right.
Because
I mean, it was amazing, and that was the one thing, and that's what I can say is this, honestly, looking back, accreditation to Canonical, they innovated and created a future single-handedly for Linux.
Yep.
Because back then the guys at Red Hat and they just didn't, all those guys that were doing the stuff, they didn't have any inclination to make it easy. You know what I'm saying? Or user friendly.
Fedora was
if you knew how to use it, great. If you didn't, they didn't care. Canonical took a different approach. They were like, no,
Yeah.
we want to make this available for the world to use, you know? And I think they literally are, put Linux on the map, so to speak,
Yeah,
as a common user.
looking at it now, Fedora was a year before Ubuntu came out.
Yeah, a year before
So
Ubuntu,
I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously Mark would have had the plan for a while, but seeing Fedora come out and then a year later doing Ubuntu, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what Ubuntu decided to do when they first released was inspired by what Fedora wasn't doing.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Most definitely there was. They came out. I think it was GNOME. They're the ones that innovated with GNOME, I think, and I think Fedora had KDE back then.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I think I can't remember. I can't remember what their desktop environment was.
It might. I've always
remembered it as KDE for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. But in any instance, they were competing as the two giants, behemoths that were always at the battle. They still are, but they were competing, but they were both going along the same lines. But I think Canonical just paid more attention to the finite details in the beginning.
Canonical wasn't as hard on like free software. They like wanted to make things actually work.
Right, exactly. And so I think, like I said, single-handedly to me, I think they're the main reason why Linux is even on the map right now.